Alright, so going through the portfolio, I'll only go through the photography section of it. So this is my dog Tiger. I chose to do my dog for the wildlife photography. Um, so out of about 50 or more photos that I took, I ended up choosing a good amount that actually turned out pretty well. But we were only supposed to pick about four and then edit one of them. I chose this one because she has a nice expression. Um, I edited it to bring out more of her color and highlight some of her good features, like her. You have the top of the skull here. Um, she has a nice bridge on her nose. Like pretty much all dogs do. Um, and she has a nice color on her coat. Um, and then as a bonus, I actually worked on more of the patchwork and blemish corrections. So that's what we have here. Is I call it the birthmark edit because it pretty much is a birthmark that most dogs have. And I actually painted on this one as well as done patchwork on it. So some of the tiny whiskers that you see are actually some of my painting actually. Um, and I did that to bring out more texture in the fur to make it look more natural. Um, and then, I did some corrections to the ground down here. Um, yeah, okay, next one. Okay, so these are our portraits. This was actually the one that we had to go back in and redesign. So I chose this one because the other one, I wasn't too happy with the way the other one turned out. Um, this is the original. The shadows in his eyes are too dark. That makes his eyes look more sunken in, even though, he's a child, so shouldn't look that way. And then some of the redness was just too bright. Um, and I think I really could have done better with that, as well as like brought out more of a shine on the clothing and metal that you'd normally see from lots of sunlight. And then this one, I think I definitely could have done a much better job on. So, but instead of enhancing them to make them look like better versions, I figured it is best to go more dramatic on the changes for that. So I did two different types of focus, um, which is just kind of another way of saying like I was going for a different feel for both of them. So one, I was going for like a late afternoon where the color is saturated. You have more of the pastel colors that come out too. Um, yeah, and then I did corrections to the red here. There's more red, which I think maybe I could have done some correction to that too, so it didn't come out so red. But my son's ears actually do look like that in the light, and I actually did correct that here, so it looks a little more natural. And then here is the blue focus, and again, I didn't correct the ears here, which you can see. But that really is what he looks like in the sunlight sometimes because just the sun is coming through his ears, and his ears, he blushes in his ears and his cheeks. So I have that too. Um, and then I focused on kind of getting a glow going with the clothing and the metal. So I made sure to bring that out this time. And then on the other two, I actually did more of a intensity focus on them, which is just kind of blowing out the color a little bit and really focusing on getting a highlight to where the sun sits. So, and then this one, I actually brought in some more green into the clothing. So if it was like a really really bright day, sometimes some of the green shines back on clothing. So and then of course I did some of the corrections to the skin and the frayed clothing and stuff like that. So this is my nephew. Again, I went through another 100 photos of uh, that we did, and yeah, it was hard to pick out photos for this one too, as well as the previous project. So this one was actually a lot of layering with different types of painted color over the grass area. So here, for instance, and definitely here, I actually painted in magenta, so that way it would be a different color than his skin, because when you put when you desaturated the images, everything would be the same shade of black and white, or the same shade of gray, I should say. And that was yeah, that was a little it was a lot of trial and error to figure out what works best for what. So this for instance, the sunflowers here were actually the same shade of gray as his skin was. So that took a lot of different layerings, and then of course I did a lot of exposure work too, to bring more of his good features out, like his nose, and highlights on the flowers and stuff like that. Okay, and then the last one is the abstract photos that we did. This is actually a photo of my eye. For this one, this is actually several different, several, I should say, several of the same images, just cut and or copied and pasted. And then I did a lot of the patchwork and blemish work to get rid of the seams, and then I did a lot of the blurring to smooth out some of the skin, some of the textured skin. Um, and then of course I changed the eye colors using different layers. Same thing for this one. A lot of the same stuff. Um, and then I used hue and saturation to change the eye color. Um, so I focused on getting the intensity first that I wanted for the color, and then I would go to the very top where it has the rainbow bar, that has what the neutral focus is supposed to be, or whatever the skin tone is supposed to be, and I changed it to different ones. So like this one would probably be over the blue, and this one is probably over the yellow. Um, and then of course I desaturated some of the skin tone to make it look more unnatural, kind of like you would see on a doll's skin, or maybe some of the more porcelain colored or porcelain material dolls that are trying to mimic skin tone. So it was just mostly an abstract project where you just had to make an abstract image, but I really enjoyed doing this, and I thought it came out pretty well. So yeah, those are the four photography projects that I wanted to include.